Welcome everyone to our first meeting of the year, our January virtual meeting for 2021, which is going to be the best year ever, which is exactly what we said at the start of 2020. So a few chapter notes. Our chapter leadership's actively working on our winter project management symposium. This will serve as a replacement for our 2020 fall symposium that we usually hold at the Silver Spring Civic Center. Virtual access will be free for all valid members, and we're shooting for another multi-day function so you can at least get 14 or more PDUs. We've heard from a lot of our chapter members who were scheduled to take the PMP with an online proctor before the 31 December cutoff of this exam, and either got kicked out of the testing portal and couldn't get back in, or their applications didn't get approved in time for them to schedule the date. PMI had a mass amount of members who were looking to get their test in before the 31st, so there wasn't even a date available from like 12 December on. So we understand how frustrating that can be, putting all this time into study and succeed, and then you can't take the exam, and now you have to learn a few new things. The new version, the 2021 version of the PMP, is going to be more of an agile discipline focus. So we understand. We have a lot of education partners who can provide training. We have a lot of our members who did take the test in the past 2 or 3 months, who we can link you up with to kind of help you identify what the tests look like. And then once we get some new members who take the 2020-21 tests, we can get them in touch with you. So we understand the discouragement, but this is why you're a part of our chapter family, so we can help each other. From a PMI global perspective, Seminars World is starting back up. For those whose companies have an annual education allowance, this is a good use if you already have a certification and you need PDUs. The reduced pricing special expires on the 11th, so that's coming up on Monday. And for the February speakers, friends of our chapter, Leadership Techniques, Lisa Hammer and David Newman, who just gave our presentation in December, Carl Pritchard, who's given 11 or 12 presentations for the chapter, and then Dr. Martins, who was our 2019 Speaker of the Year. So all have new programs, all virtual, and a good way to get 25 to 30 PDUs that week. Our Project Management Day of Service, which partners up project managers with Greater Washington nonprofits, is coming up next month. Their leadership and Miss Beth May is on the line, so we'll give her a chance to give a plug.
Thank you, Matt. We are planning this event to be virtual on WebEx, and we have about 20 some projects, nonprofit projects signed up. Some nonprofits have more than one project. And at this point, we don't have as many PMs as we need for that many projects. So, and we haven't raised the registration fee from 20 to 25 as we'd planned to do, not yet. So I welcome everybody to please get the registration in at pmforchange.org. Thanks, Matt.
Sure thing. All of our education partners are still offering virtual programs and webinars, ability to get PDUs, and most of all, learn a little bit. So from leadership techniques to project management experts in Giuliani to our friends at Montgomery College, as you look at 2021 in terms of being proactive and identify professional goals, keeping our education partners in mind will go a long way. Okay, so two things about me. One, back when we used to take air travel for work a long, long time ago, I was one of the guys who showed up 90 minutes early to the gate, not just the airport, just as superstition or whatever else. Second thing is I've always looked at airports as this great hub of the real potential of humanity. And you have so much talent, so many different stories, and everybody's rushing, people are stressed out. But when you take the time to look at, you know, how much talent you'd have, diverse talent you have in one area at any time, airports really gives you that. So that being said, I'm the guy who wants to be your friend at the gate or sitting next to you on the plane. And when you try to put in your earphones to play a movie or read a book, like I'm the guy who's like looking at you expecting to talk more. So unlucky for our speaker, but hopefully a win-win tonight is I was at the gate for a flight in February to San Antonio, and Leslie was next to me, started doing my normal jibber jabber, and just her passion for her professional life and being the leader of the Mid-Atlantic chapter of the Make-A-Wish Foundation really shined through. I think as project managers, we often ask ourselves, are we making a difference? Does our work really matter in the big scheme of things? Yeah, our projects are successful, but is it making the world better? And throughout Leslie's experience of working at top research and thought leadership firms like Brookings and Aspen, to her work with the United Nations Foundation, to her leadership with the greatest zoo in the world, our zoo in Washington, D.C., home of our favorite panda bears. And then in her current role, that really shined through that her job does make a difference, and she doesn't take that lightly and understands the responsibility that goes with that power. So we're very lucky to have Leslie speak tonight. I think coming out of the holiday season, where we try, even in the difficult year of 2020, we tried to make our loved ones and friends' wishes come true as much as we could. And with the Make-A-Wish children population, 2020 may have been their last year, and trying to make maybe not their dream wish come true, but something come true so that puts a smile on their face was really important. And we look forward to learning that tonight. So we'll turn it over to Leslie.
Well, thank you, Matt, and thank you everybody for joining me. I also want to introduce our Director of Wish Granting, who's on the call with me today, and she's really going to be talking a lot about how we project manage the art and magic of wish granting. I really appreciate everybody joining us tonight when there is so much going on in our country. When I first started with Make-A-Wish almost 3 years ago, one of the first wishes that I was able to attend, other than my own, I'm a wish mom, my son had a wish 2.5 years ago. It was for a young man who wanted to be a US Senator. And this was, I believe he was in his early teens, and he met with over 30 members of Congress and was so eloquent about issues he was passionate about. And I have to wonder what he's thinking right now. And so I just want to say I appreciate everybody taking time out today, especially to attend this talk. I hope that I learned something from you as well. I always love when I get to speak to groups to ask. I know a lot of you don't have your cameras on. I always love to ask for a show of hands or a shout out, or I guess now some comment in the chat box. If you know a wish child, or if anyone in your family has had a wish granted, has anybody had a personal experience with Make-A-Wish? Earl Taylor says yes. There's at least one. That's wonderful. I'm sure there are more of you too that I can't see. Kevin Melanson. Well, for those of you who don't, Bob Friedman, yes, that's fantastic. Make-A-Wish has been around for over 40 years, and we are blessed to have served so many children here in our Mid-Atlantic region, but also internationally. And before we talk tonight, I thought it might be helpful to just give you some background on how we started. How did Make-A-Wish come to be those many years ago? So we're going to just start with a short video here that talks about how one child's wish inspired what is now a global movement.
So when Chris got sick at 4.5 and was diagnosed with acute leukemia, being a small town little farm kid, and I said, okay, how do we get rid of it? Just bottom line, give me the bottom line. And he said, your son has maybe 3.5 years through medical technology. He said, maybe 35%, the very max would be 50% survival. That night I made a promise and a vow to, live a lifetime in 3 years, bar none. When Christopher got ill for the last time, it was in mid-April 1980, I made a phone call to Tom Austin, U.S. Customs agent. He and his wife and I and Chris and their kids had been friends throughout the 3 years. And I said, Tommy, if there's any way to call in that promise, now is the time. They wanted to do something special for this little boy, to make his dream of being a police officer more real.
7-year-old Chris Gracious of Phoenix was awarded the honorary rank of patrolman in late April. Chris is a leukemia patient. He's going to be confined to a hospital soon, but he's always wanted to be a highway patrolman.
He got on the phone and called Ronnie Cox. He says, Ronnie, it's time. And Ronnie got on the phone, started calling some of his people, and a helicopter ride was arranged in a real Ranger helicopter. It was a wonderful, wonderful day, and that was April 29th, 1980. It was an absolutely marvelous, marvelous day on May 1st also. Chris changed into his uniform. He had his helmet, his Smokey the Bear hat, full uniform. Chris strapped on his little gun and holster set, and he was ready for anything. On May 2nd, which was a Friday, he woke up and he says, Mommy, I don't feel good. And he says, I want to go see my doctor. So took him to the hospital. We checked him in. He said, Mommy, I want all my police stuff. I need my uniform. I need everything here. On Saturday morning, May 3rd, he kind of woke up. He saw his uniform. He saw all of his police things. And he said, Mommy, Mommy, where are you? I said, I'm right here, sweetheart. And he says, I love you. You've been a good mommy. Just later that night, about 7:35, he passed away.
7-year-old Chris Gracious lost his battle for life to leukemia, but the last week of his young life was a happy time for Chris, his parents, his friends, and the Department of Public Safety.
Everyone has a reason. I believe we're all put on this earth for a purpose, for a reason. And I believe Chris's reason was for this group. Tom and Ron and I stood in the middle of a GPS parking lot after Christopher's first day on the 29th. And Tommy says, we're going to do this again. It just took people caring to help make this little wish come true. It just started like a snowball going down the hill, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Everybody wanted in on it. They just wanted to do something to make this little boy happy. And I think that is so wonderful, because that's what Make-A-Wish is. It gave me strength, hope, and joy because there was people that cared. There were people that came into my life that said, hey, everything's going to be all right. It will be okay. for Make-A-Wish to come in and say, you deserve a wish. There's no worries, there's no stress whatsoever. And they come back just elated, just so happy with smiles, giggles, laughter, memories that carry on forever. Those last forever. There are nice things that happen in this world. There are good people out there that just want to help. When I was tucking him into bed, he went to sleep with a badge in his hand. And I tucked him, kissed him goodnight, and he says, Mommy, does this make me a real cop? I said, yes, it does. I said, it's official. But to me, you're always going to be a trooper. I believe this was Christopher's purpose. And he felt me worthy enough to keep carrying that torch. And I'm still kicking, so yes, I will do it until the day he calls me home.
Thank you, Matt. So that's a video that was produced by our colleagues at the Make-A-Wish chapter in Wisconsin. But as I said, I wanted to show that to you because it shows the power of what wishing and hope can do, not just for a child, that child's family, but really for the entire community that is part of a wish. And 41 years later, I'm very excited to be part of this organization, especially during this challenging time as we seek to fulfill our mission, which is very simple. Our mission is to grant a life-changing wish for children with critical illnesses. And Matt, sorry to do this to you, but if you could advance the slides, that would be great. Make-A-Wish, if you could go forward one more time too. Make-A-Wish America is now the largest wish granting organization in the entire world. Since we were founded in almost 41 years ago, here in the United States, we've granted over 328,000 wishes, but we also have affiliates all around the world, and this year celebrated our 500,000th wish. There are two things I think two big misconceptions people have about Make-A-Wish that I want to make sure I dispel at the very beginning of our conversation. One is that we are not the Last Wish organization. Many people think that we are the dying wish, that the child has to have a terminal diagnosis to receive a wish, when really the majority of our children now, thanks not just to advances in medicine, but we think because of the strength and perseverance they get from a wish, children are actually living longer and surviving past their wish time. The other thing is that people think that we're some large national organization that children can apply to, and certain kids are selected every year to receive a wish. That's also a big misconception. We are really a 100% locally driven. Here in the Mid-Atlantic, we serve kids from Maryland, DC, and Northern Virginia. And if your child receives a qualifying diagnosis, your child gets a wish. It doesn't matter how much you make. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, your religion. We have no discrimination and we have no application process. Any child who receives a qualifying diagnosis gets their wish. If you could keep forwarding, Matt, that would be great. Make-A-Wish is consistently rated one of the top 5 most loved, trusted, and respected nonprofits in the country. And these are the other, our peers are not just children's charities. It's health charities, it's homelessness charities. Our brand has great strength, and the American public has put great trust in us to serve the children that we serve. Keep going, Matt. So as I said, our Mid-Atlantic chapter is one of 60 chapters across the United States and territories. We are responsible for granting the wishes of all children with critical illnesses who qualify for a wish in the entire state of Maryland. So all the way out to the Eastern Shore, Cumberland, up to the Pennsylvania border, the District of Columbia, and the 6 cities and counties surrounding DC in Northern Virginia. Since we were founded in 1983, we've granted over 10,000 wishes to children right here in our own backyards. You could advance, Matt, please. And our vision is very simple. You could advance again, Matt. It's to grant the wish of every eligible child. So obviously the question then is, what does every eligible child look like? What does that mean in terms of numbers here in the Mid-Atlantic? And unfortunately, that's a question that is very difficult for us to answer, simply because we do not have good data, health data, on how many children likely receive a qualifying diagnosis every year. But we estimate that it is somewhere between 800 and 1,200 children every year just here in our territory that could be eligible for a wish. We have been granting somewhere in the average of 300 wishes for the past several years, and on average have been getting around 450 referrals, principally from doctors, but parents and children themselves are allowed to refer themselves for a wish. So we know that there are out there probably 350 to 750 children that we are not reaching every year, children that don't know that they qualify for a wish, whose parents and medical providers don't know that they qualify for a wish. Our vision is to raise the funds, build the internal capacity, build the volunteer capacity so that someday we can make sure that every one of those children like my own son, Jack, who is now 4 years out of treatment for leukemia, gets their one true wish. If you could advance, Matt. And what I'd like to do now is introduce you to my colleague, Evanka. She joined our chapter 7 years ago as an intern, and 4 promotions later, she's now our director of wish granting. And she's gonna lift the veil here behind the Wizard of Oz's curtain and let you know how all this magic is put together to change these children's lives. So Evanka, I'm gonna send it over to you.
Thanks, Leslie. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. Like as Leslie shared, I am the director of wish granting at Make-A-Wish Mid-Atlantic, and I'm going to dive deeper into what wish granting looks like. On the outside, what you see are the photos and the child having their wish granted in really happy, joyous occasions, which we're so thrilled to be a part of. But I wanted to take this time kind of to talk through all of that so that you can see what goes into the actual, I guess, art of wish granting. So the wish types, we have 5 different wish types that we are able to kind of compartmentalize the different wishes we grant. So we're able to do to be wishes, which are pretty creative experiences when a kid wants to be a police officer or to be a princess or to be a doctor. Those we usually see from the younger kids who have kind of taken the time to really dig deeper into what kind of magical thing they can come up with. We can also do to have wishes, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, especially given how wish granting has changed given the pandemic. So to have a computer or a gaming system or to go on shopping sprees, those are kind of the things that we're able to purchase or give a playset, pool, things like that. We have to-go wishes, which are the most popular wish type, at least pre-COVID-19. So going to Disney World, international travel, domestic travel. A lot of the time Make-A-Wish is synonymous with travels and trips and things like that. So again, another huge change impacted by the pandemic. And then the final wish type, and then we have to meet. So another wish type that you can kind of see with Make-A-Wish, so celebrity wishes and experiences to meet actors, actresses, going to sporting events, concerts, anything that you would consider a celebrity experience or something where you would have to be facilitating with another entity, including, for example, going to visit the Tesla factory or wanting to go to Pixar, which you wouldn't necessarily think of as a celebrity experience. Those are all encompassed in this to meet category. And then finally, we have the to give category. We do have a number of kids who decide that for their one true wish, they want to give it to another organization or another foundation because they have the will and means to do so. So to give to their hospital, to give to an organization that means a lot to them, to give to Make-A-Wish. So within those 5 wish types, we have our hands full with a lot of different things that we need to do to try and make sure that we're able to grant these wishes in a magical and most enjoyable experience as possible. So that all being said, just because we're the ones granting the wishes, we are not the only people that are a part of this process. It's not only Make-A-Wish Mid-Atlantic, it takes an entire community to grant these wishes, starting from when we first get the child referred to the organization. We'll talk about this more in the next 2 slides, but it takes the doctors confirming that a child is eligible. It takes our wish granting volunteers who go to interview the wish child and find out what their wishes are and make the experience as magical as possible while we're trying to grant their wish from the office. It takes their social workers referring the wish children. It takes the family making sure that the wish child's best interests are at heart when we're working through granting their wishes. It's the community, the local vendors when we're working on doing to have wishes and trying to get those pools and trying to get all those different items that we need to pull together this experience, the restaurants donating food to make the entire wish even more than the wish child is anticipated. It takes an entire community to grant these wishes. So that's something to consider, that it's not just Make-A-Wish doing all the work on our own. We have to engage with everyone to make sure that we're able to do the work that we're doing. So as we talk about all the different people, we can go on to the wish process. So you can see kind of how we get from the referral to the actual wish granting. So first, to grant a wish, we need the child to be referred to our organization. The child can refer themselves. The social worker or medical team for the child can refer them, or the parents can. So we have those relationships with our local hospitals to make sure that they know that we are here. They're educated in what diagnoses are eligible. And so they are kind of our biggest group of advocates to make sure that wish children are able to have their wishes granted. And then of course the children, the parents can refer themselves to us as well. And then the doctor, once we receive the referral, we reach out to their medical team. If it didn't come from the social worker, to confirm their diagnoses and let them know that they are eligible for a wish. And the medical team and doctor will confirm, yes, this is what the child is diagnosed with. And once we have that confirmation, we're able to proceed with the process. Once we have that confirmed, wish granters are assigned to the wish children. We have an amazing group of local wish granting volunteers who are so passionate about this mission and pick up these kids to interview them and find out what their wishes are. Our wish granting volunteers are trained in the entire wish process as well. They know how to speak to the wish child about what their wish is, make sure that the wish is for the kid and that the wish child is the one that truly wants what is being asked for, and also understanding how to come into a family's home now virtually during a time where they have a lot going on, and there's a little extra sensitivity that everyone has to take to make sure that, yes, the focus is on the child, but understanding what else the family is going through as well. So these wish granting volunteers are trained in making sure that everyone is okay, and that ultimately they're leaving this meeting with a wish for the kid. So after they've scheduled that meeting and they have the meeting, they at this point get a lot of paperwork filled out for us, which includes the wish that we work on getting approved. So once they get that wish from this wish interview, then they get all the paperwork back to us, and in the office, we work on approving the wish. So as a chapter, we have to approve the wish. We have to make sure, based on all the information that the wish granting volunteers have gathered from the wish interview, that the wish is appropriate for the child, that the wish is something that we are able to do as an organization, and that monetarily that's something that we're prepared to commit to as well, and that it is appropriate and it's going to meet the expectations of the wish child. And then we also have to get the wish medically approved to make sure that it is safe for the child. So if a child wants to go skiing, we have to make sure that, given their diagnoses, the medical team would approve something like that before we let the family know that that wish is going to even be possible. So once our chapter has approved it, and once the medical team has approved it, and we have all the paperwork, all the signatures, all the information we need to move forward with actually granting the wish, then we can move forward with making those arrangements. So there's a lot that takes place within granting the wish, and it all depends on the wish type. If it's a travel wish, making sure that we've made all the arrangements, such as flights and hotels and activities, depending on what the child wants to do. If it's a to be wish, figuring out how we're going to make this child feel like that they're a police officer, that they're a superhero, or if they want to meet a unicorn, figuring out where to find a unicorn and how to make this magical, and making it a very exciting and special experience. And if they want an iPad, making sure that we get them all the accessories they need, all the little pieces that we put together to make sure that we're granting each child, regardless of what type of wish they've asked for, a magical experience. So once we get to the granting of the wish and have granted the wish, then post-wish, we always, as you can imagine, ask for photos so we can see how everything went. We do ask families if they want to stay involved with our organization, whether it's becoming a wish granting volunteer, supporting us monetarily, helping us with any sort of publicity pieces or sharing our mission, things like that. And we do have a good number of families who, because of the amazing experience they've had, decide that they want to help support this mission so we can help children just like theirs moving forward. So that is pretty much a synopsis of the wish process, I would say, at a glance.
If we could just chime in real quick, Evanka. Most of us on the line know that the definition of a project is it's temporary in nature and time bound. So the programs team, once we got the slides, kind of looked at the wish process in our 5 project phases. Would anyone disagree that the execution phase should start earlier than the medical authorization? Beth, your thoughts?
No, looks good. I was I think you nailed it. I was wondering if it certainly shouldn't start before the medical authorization. I was wondering if execution should start after the medical authorization, but that doesn't quite make sense. So I think you nailed it.
So one question we had for you, Evanka, would be how many wishes get through the planning phase but don't make it to the execution phase?
That's a good question. I would say, so every child that is deemed eligible and that starts to go through the process, unless the family decides otherwise, they have a wish granted. So I would say that maybe their initial wish doesn't always make it past the planning phase. If it's not approved because it's not medically safe or it's not something that we're unfortunately able to do, I would say that's when it wouldn't make it to the execution phase. But for the most part, all wishes, basically any wish that makes it through the planning phase, every kid will have a wish. Every wish that makes it through the planning phase is a wish that has been approved. And even though I don't know too much about PMI or PMP, I would almost say that the execution phase should include the program staff seeks chapter approval, because we want to make sure that before before we confirm that a wish is possible, we've kind of planned it out a little bit at the program staff approving the wish phase to make sure that it's deemed eligible. We never want to pull a fast one on a kid and make them think that we're about to be granting this wish, and then they get to the wish arrangements and we're like, actually, you have to change your wish. So hopefully that answers the question.
Just say a couple words about kind of what, we have some restriction on wishes, but not many. Maybe you could just give some commentary about kind of what kinds of wishes we're unable to grant.
So to put it in perspective, wishes that we are unable to grant include gifting medical treatment, purchasing homes for kids, anything that has to do with firearms, lump sums of money, going to, this was pre-COVID-19, but in terms of travel, places that were on the do not travel list, we were not allowed to. So a lot of it makes sense. It's for the safety of the families, and it's for making sure that we're ultimately able to grant as many wishes as possible. So nothing really out of the ordinary. And then the other thing, again, to reiterate, would be that if it's not medically safe for the child, we would not be able to move forward.
And then in the cases where you do have to reject a wish, where do you go back to on the, how many steps back do you have to take? All the way to the doctor eligibility, depending on how much time may have passed since the doctor did the first screening, or is it more like around here?
It's more around submit wish paperwork packet to chapter office, because once we've deemed that a wish isn't possible, instead of going back to the wish granting volunteers, if we have been communicating with the family, that's usually news the office will share. And we do, during the wish interview, something to share is we do ask for multiple wishes. So during the wish interview, we spend that time getting to know the child. What are your interests? What do you like? What do you dislike? What do you enjoy doing with your family? When you're at home, what do you like to do? We get all of that information. So there's a lot of questions that we try to answer from the wish child, so that when we finally get to what is your wish, usually all of that information kind of aligns with that top wish. But then we also understand that kids have loads of interests. So there are other things most of the time that a kid is like, well, if I can't do this, then I would want to do this, or, oh, yes, I want to go to Disney World, but I also love photography. So there are things that ultimately it's always our intention to move forward with the first wish, but if we have to pivot, we're usually still meeting the expectations of the wish child.
Great, thank you so much.
No problem. So we can go to the next slide. So our goal is to grant as many wishes as possible with the shortest wait time, but also understanding that we do have a budget. Our fiscal year runs from September 1st to August 31st. That summer prior is when we usually have the budget solidified. So going into the fiscal year, we know exactly, or ideally, how many wishes we're going to be able to grant. So we spend a lot of time not only figuring out how many wishes we can grant per month to make sure that we're meeting, one, the pipeline of wishes that we have, two, making sure kids don't have a super long wait time for their wishes. Something to consider in regards to that is each child has a different timeline. So most of the time, the medical teams will tell us if we need to grant wishes in a shorter amount of time. Most of our children are in the midst of treatment. They've just been diagnosed, all different stages in their medical journey. That being said, a common misconception that we have in regards to Make-A-Wish is that we're working with terminal kids, and that's not the case. We work with children with critical illnesses. Sometimes there are bad situations. Sometimes, most of the time, honestly, the kids end up going on their trips outside of treatment. They're in remission. There are a lot of good silver linings. But that being said, we do have situations where we have to grant a wish within 24 to 48 hours, or a child has a couple of months. But most of the time, kids do have a longer time frame. So if they pick a place that they want to travel and they can't go for a year, or they want to go to the next Super Bowl and that isn't for another year, things like that, they have the time to wait and do that. So all of that being said, we take into consideration what kids, how many of them need to go in a given year. And on top of the fact that we are planning these wishes within the budget we have, our secondary goal, which is granting as many wishes as possible, can only be done if we're able to offset our cash costs with in-kinds. So the more in-kind we get, the more cash we have to grant more wishes that would be outside of the wishes that we have budgeted. So that's something that we always have to keep in mind, as well as we're trying to figure out, kind of puzzle piece, what our budget and year looks like in terms of scheduling and granting those wishes. So as it says in the slides, successfully in our fiscal year pre-COVID, so prior to August 31st, 2020, or I guess August 31st, 2019, we were able to, our average wish in kind donations was 55%. So half of a wish was donated. And we were able to grant a surplus of wishes that we did not budget for because of the in-kind resources we received during the pandemic. To full disclosure, it's been a lot harder. A lot of people are going through many things. We've seen it with the restaurant industry. Travel isn't happening. People have the capacity to give, but not the same way that they did beforehand. So we're definitely not going to see an in-kind like that, but understanding that wishes are still happening, that's still something that is on the forefront of everyone's minds as we continue to make sure that we can grant wishes and bring joy to kids during this time. So we spend a lot of...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Leslie.
Not on the slide. Prior to COVID, the average wish for a wish granted here in our Mid-Atlantic territory was $12,295. That was what our average wish cost was in 2019. As Evanka said, for some of these international trips, because the entire family goes on the trip, the entire family experiences the wish. It's not just a child and one parent or guardian, it's the siblings, it's anyone living in that household. Many wishes that we have become high cost wishes. So these are wishes that can get up into, the $20,000 range. And so what many years ago, before our current vice president was in place, the operating mode was, let's grant as many as we could, right? Let's get as many kids their wishes. So there were children with these higher cost wishes that were waiting longer. They were kind of being backlogged. And so we put into place this allocation every year so that children who have higher cost wishes would not be waiting an exorbitant amount of time. And so now COVID, we haven't, we've been able to kind of, we've had to expend that rule because these travel wishes aren't happening. But before COVID, 80% of our budget was on an average or lower cost wish. And then 20% of our budget we would put towards these higher cost wishes. So children with a higher cost wish could be waiting longer than children with an average cost wish, but we always wanted to make sure that it wasn't an excessive wait time because the nature of their wish would cost us more money.
And on that note, there was a question in chat of what's the average cost per wish. Could you kind of give a range from what the highest wish to the lowest wish look like on any given year?
So we put them in two buckets. We have low cost wishes and we have high cost wishes. Low cost is under $10,000, high cost is above. Leslie, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in fiscal year 19, our average low cost wish was 4,500 or something around that
in
number.
Cash. In cash.
Yes.
Plus the additional then in kind that was
correct
on top of that.
And then I can't remember what the high cost average was, but I imagine it was between 12,000 and 13,000.
Actually, the average cost of all wishes, high and low and everything in between, in 2019, our fiscal year 2019 was $12,295. That was the average cost of a wish.
And then you also mentioned that some wishes only have a 24 to 48 hour turnaround. So you guys are pretty much 365-day operations then in light of that?
Correct.
24/7, 365. Evanka's team carries literally, we have somebody assigned to a phone 24/7, 365 days a year.
Any other questions about anything so far? No? Okay. So this is just a snapshot of our WISH pipeline. This was as of May 31st, 2020. So a lot of these numbers will have been impacted, and you'll see a snapshot later of what the COVID impact has been. But qualified, just kind of talking about the WISH statuses in comparison to that WISH process that we looked at. Qualified Part A basically means that the diagnosis of the WISH child has been, basically they're eligible for a WISH. Ready to assign is when they are ready to have WISH granting volunteers go out to interview them, and then assigned means that they have WISH granting volunteers. WISH determined is after that WISH interview happens and we've received all the paperwork. Concept approved is when the chapter has approved their WISH. WISH approved Part B is when their actual WISH has been medically approved by their medical team. WISH scheduled means that their trip has been planned and we have trip dates, or the items that they're receiving, basically it's their WISH granting. And then anything in incomplete pre-COVID-19 were kids who were on medical hold because the medical team said that this wasn't a good time, or the child is not medically approved to either travel for their specific WISH or basically take part in the WISH experience at the time that they were referred. So when they're incomplete, they're usually on hold.
We look very carefully at this because we want to see where our pain points are, right? And where we can be doing a better job. And for our chapter, you'll see that the biggest percentage of where our kids lie is in that WISH approved. And the reason they're kind of stalled there as opposed to getting an actual date and delivery date is really because of financing right now. But you could look at some of our other peer chapters. We're blessed. We have 350 volunteers in the community who are WISH granters. There are some chapters out there that have a very difficult time finding volunteers. So you'll see that up in the ready to assign row, that's where their big blockage might be. So this is something that we use to kind of track our metrics and see where do we need to be focusing our efforts to get kids through the pipeline, get their wish granted as quickly as possible.
So at the end of the day, all we want the families and the kids to experience is happiness and bliss and magic. We don't always get there easily as much as we share the good stuff. So there are a lot of things that we have to plan for to make sure that we're able to get to that kind of magical moment. We have to plan around treatment schedules, and a lot of the times treatment schedules affect the timing of the wishes as well, depending on if medical teams say that a child can't travel during active treatment, or if the family would like to put off their trip until the child is kind of more up to par with the activities that they would be taking part in during their maybe trip or whatever experience they're doing. So again, child safety, making sure that the wish is medically appropriate, diagnosis limitations. When we talk about approving those wishes, are they going to be able to participate in whatever it is that they're asking to do, or do we have to pivot because they're limited by their diagnosis, availability, depending on if a child wants to go somewhere or depending on the item that kids want. During pandemic, we had, as an organization as a whole, a lot of kids wanted PlayStation 5s. Our availability doesn't change. Make-A-Wish has the same availability as everyone else. So we had a very tough time finding those PlayStation 5s. So taking that into consideration with timing and if a wish is going to be possible. Expectations, being able to meet the expectations that a child might have for their wish. If a child has wished to meet a certain celebrity, letting them kind of know what that experience could or could not entail before we move forward, so that a child isn't let down when the experience actually happens. Budgets, we budget out a wish before we get it scheduled, and sometimes the budget that we thought was gonna work out, we have unforeseen things come together all the time, especially when we're working on these kind of to have experiences where we're literally project managers handling all these different types of pieces with pools. There's electricity, there's concrete, there's water, there's the installation of the pool. And if we've never done things like that before, we might find out that we have to level the ground in the family's backyard, and that's an additional $2,000 that we didn't budget for. So being able to plan around that. These children are already immunocompromised, so it's not out of the ordinary that a child becomes sick during their trip and they have to miss their flight and stay in Orlando for a couple of extra days. So being able to plan on the fly around that, or people just miss their flights because they were so excited on their trip they forgot they had to go home, trying to figure out how to get these kids back home, weather, canceling flights, and changing wishes. Sometimes during the process, we've settled on a wish and the child is ready to go, but then a couple of months later, depending on how long we've been working on the wish, they decide to change their wish. So having to pivot mid making arrangements for the original wish. There are loads of things that we have to plan around and work on as we're going through this wish process, and we do our best to make sure that at the forefront, it's always making sure that the child and family are having a great experience, and that anything stressful or problematic or anything that will negatively affect the experience does not make it back to the family. So that's kind of those are the challenges that we face, and there's a new challenge. There are new challenges all the time, I'm sure, especially given the pandemic, we're gonna hit some more, but these are a lot of the challenges that we see while we're working on these wishes. So the next slide is just a taste of the wishes that we have granted in the past and during the pandemic. So we've had virtual shopping sprees, kids traveling pre-pandemic, were redos. Again, we've talked about travel and Disney World and how Make-A-Wish is pretty much synonymous with Disney World. So we have lots of kids who want to meet Mickey Mouse and all the characters and go to the amusement parks, and this is their opportunity to do so. We have our wish child in the corner over here who wished to have a electronic car. So they're all different types of wishes. And the one thing that we let everyone know is that there isn't too small or too big of a wish. We have kids who have dreamt about having an iPad, and that's all they want to do with their wish. And we don't ever want to belittle this amazing wish that they've had just because there are other kids who wish to travel to Bora Bora. Every wish is special, and we just make it our responsibility to make sure that each and every single wish experience is a great experience and a special one for the kid, no matter what they've wished for. So as we've talked about kind of challenges and the different types of wishes that we do, we did have 2 particular wishes that we wanted to spotlight just to show you kind of how we granted them, what happened, what the situation was to ultimately get to the wish granting. So the first one was a rush wish. So we had wish kid Gabriella on the next slide. She had originally wished to go to Disney World. Unfortunately, she got ill before they were able to travel. They had been scheduled to go to Disney World. And the medical team reached out to us, and they were like, they basically told us she isn't going to be able to travel anymore. Ultimately, they need to change their wish. We've talked to the family. She would like to have all of these items and basically go on a virtual shopping spree. She still loves Disney, loves Minnie Mouse, loves LOL dolls. So if you could get her all these things while she's in the hospital, because she's likely not going to be leaving, that would make her time very special. So Gabriella's wish was a really special experience, because after we put together the list of items that Mom approved, we reached out to our community and asked if they would purchase the items for Gabriella. So we put together an Amazon wish list, which has been huge during this virtual work from home, social distance time, to purchase the items that we then wrapped and had delivered to the hospital so that Gabriella could open these items. So even though it wasn't her Disney World wish, she was thrilled. We heard from her medical team that she had such a great time opening everything. Her family was so excited. They said that she had this renewed energy that she just hadn't been showing pre-having her wish granted. So we were really excited that we were able to grant this, and we had to grant it within a week. So once the medical team told us, we had to get all the items, get it together, and make sure we were able to get it all to her within the week. Unfortunately, a little time after her wish was granted, she did pass away, but we were able to grant that wish and bring her that joy, even though it wasn't the original wish that she had asked for. So being able to get the community involved to get this done as quickly as possible, and then rallying our staff to make sure that we could get the items together, wrapped in to the medical team was huge. So not every rush wish and not every wish is time sensitive as that, but like we said, depending on the child, the medical team will let us know what we have to do and how quickly we have to do it. And we always do our best, and ultimately we do end up being able to grant the wish. So the next wish is another super special wish. So Sonia was actually supposed to originally go to Japan, and she was scheduled to travel to Japan in April of 2020. As of March 16th, 2020, all travel had been postponed and canceled due to COVID-19, and Sonia had been waiting for about a year to travel to Japan. So it was a pretty big disappointment, but the family was super understanding. And at the time, we had given them the option to wait for during a hold period to see if travel was going to be okay in the future. The family got back to us 3 months later, specifically Sonia, and she let us know that instead of waiting for travel, she wanted to change her wish to a give wish. And her email listed out the 5 organizations that she wanted to donate to. She wanted to donate to the NAACP, the National Bail Fund, Pediatric Oncology in Florida, Global Giving, and a 5th organization that I am not remembering right now, but she was adamant that at this time, this is what she wanted to do with her wish. And we, of course, were able to do that. But given that it's such a unique and special wish, and we were all social distance and everything was virtual, we had to get creative on a way to make this an experience for Sonia. So what we ended up doing with the help, again, of our community is we held a kind of Zoom forum or Zoom presentation to talk about Sonia's wish. And we reached out to all the organizations that she wanted to donate to. And everyone was thrilled at the idea of thanking, Feeding America was actually the 5th one, because I saw someone write something in the chat. So Feeding America was the 5th organization. But we reached out to the organizations, and everyone had someone represent their organization during this Zoom where they thanked Sonia and told her what a great person she is and kind of how amazing she was. And she gave this fantastic speech about just being kind and making sure that you're here for your community and doing things with her wish that she hadn't necessarily initially thought she was going to do, but ultimately was so happy to be able to use her wish towards such a special moment. So even though it wasn't the in-person travel experience that we or she thought it was going to be, we were still able to make it something magical. Afterwards, Sonia sent this lovely email about how she couldn't have imagined using her wish for anything else, and how thrilled she was with the opportunity to be able to do this, and how happy she was with the Zoom and everything. So again, another pivot, another a challenge that we all had to get through. But when you work with wish kids like this, it's really not that hard to rally and kind of figure out a way to make it better.
And that's a good segue to the conversation that's going on in chat right now about the emotional toll that it takes on your staff. Leslie, did you kind of want to share what you wrote?
Thank you for the question, and it's really Evanka who should answer it. You know, it's hard. It's very emotionally challenging a lot of times. We try to have social workers come in and do resiliency training and grief counseling for our staff, but honestly, I don't do enough of that for my team, and it's something I think we need to work on. But you know, I think we get letters from families, especially in these rush wish situations, which are very difficult. You know, it's the letters from the parents, it's the letters from the medical team that we receive afterwards saying, you know, in the moment of the wish, my child was alert. They were happy. It gave us something positive to remember. Those stories, the stories of children who go on after their wish and give back, grateful families, you know, that's where you have to, that's what you always have to remember. And it makes the job very rewarding, as difficult as it is. But Evanka's much more on the front lines of this than I am. Evanka, so how do you deal with this, and your team deal with what's a very emotionally trying job?
Definitely seeing the smiles on those kids' faces are very helpful in reminding us that what we're doing is good. It doesn't, like the person who asked the question said, it's still emotionally taxing. we've had social workers, we've spoken to social workers about this before, and they've let us know, they've shared different ways as to kind of how to step back and make sure we kind of like shake it off, physically shake it off, so that we have that clear head to continue doing what we're doing, because burnout is real. Our team and our chapter are very encouraging in terms of making sure we take time off, that we're not, even though, yes, we do have to be 24/7 sometimes, we're a team. So when you need the time to sort of step back, that you take the time to do so, and working on a good work-life personal balance to make sure that you are able to clear your head, and that it's not always wish all the time, even though we love granting wishes. Sometimes you do need to take a little break to make sure that you can keep doing this work with a clear head. So we have touched on this a little bit, but on March 16th, 2020, Make-A-Wish as an organization made the decision to indefinitely postpone all travel and in-person wishes. And at this point, we're still following those guidelines. As you can imagine, we look at things every single day, and with the introduction of a vaccine, our hope is that in the future we'll be able to try and figure out when and if things will change to how they were before. But as of right now, given that not only is it what's safest for everyone, but our community is literally immunocompromised individuals, the most important thing is making sure that what we're doing for our families is keeping their safety in mind. That being said, yes, it did lead to a lot of disappointment. And yes, we do have a lot of families and wish children the wish children have been dreaming of traveling. And that was always what they were going to do with their wish. So when we go to the next slide, I think in a little bit, you'll see how the pipeline has been affected by these kids waiting. But as soon as the pivot to kind of this virtual world started, we went from in-person wish interviews to virtual wish interviews. So a lot of Zoom, a lot of FaceTime, a lot of Teams. Celebrity wishes are all virtual. So if a child does want to meet a celebrity, they have to be prepared for a video call or a phone call or a video message. And a lot more to have wishes. So a lot of virtual shopping sprees, a lot of Amazon wish lists. We have kids wishing for campers, play sets, room redos, given that people are spending a lot more time at home, gaming equipment, anything that we can purchase, given that it'll bring joy to the children right now, but there are also things that are accessible to us as an organization, given that we can't do anything in person. At this time, kids are able to still wish for domestic travel, understanding that they are going to be on hold for a 1-year period. And if in that 1 year travel has not resumed or it's not safe to travel, they will have to pivot to another wish. So again, going to that interview, understanding that, yes, we're going to do whatever we can to grant your one true wish, but here's the reality of what's going on. So we would love to know what else we could do to make you happy. And then the child does always have the option to change their wish. So we have had a number of kids who started off being on hold last year and come into the new year and have decided that I think now what I want to do is something that you guys can give me right now. So we are seeing those and have seen those trickle in since last year. So this is the pipeline as of December 15th. So in that last screenshot that you guys saw and that Leslie pointed out, our biggest group was at that wish approved Part B for financial reasons or scheduling reasons. Now, given that travel is not happening, the kids who did not change their wishes and elected to hold are now in this incomplete status. So you're seeing a little over 50% of these kids are waiting to have their wishes granted. and were affected by COVID-19 cancellations and postponements. And given that travel is not resuming, this incomplete number is just going to continue to rise.
We should change that from incomplete to on hold because they're going to be completed. They're just waiting.
Right. So that is all of that in regards to wish granting. Does anyone have any questions about any of that before Leslie continues? Nope. Okay, Leslie, I turn it over to you.
I also just wanted to take a minute to mention, how we measure performance. A lot of, I remember out of college when I said I wanted to go and work for a nonprofit, my parents just couldn't understand what that was, right? And it's like, we are a business and we operate like a business. We have to be able to deliver on our mission. So program management is very important to us, but performance management is equally important. And one of the things that I hope that you will leave here knowing tonight is our belief, and I hope we've proved it to you, that wishes aren't just a nice thing to do. They're not a warm and fuzzy feel-good thing. They are, but they are so much more than that. Medical research, survey research of doctors and former adult wish kids, parents show unequivocally that wishes are necessary. Close to 90% of our nurses, doctors, child life specialists, social workers believe that a wish can positively influence a child's physical health. And almost 80% of former wish kids say that their wish marked a turning point in their treatment and recovery. We hear these stories time and time again about how the wish gave the child something to look forward to, something to fight for, something to live for. Wishes matter. And this survey data is one of the ways in which we measure the impact of a wish. Matt, if you could click ahead too, please. And that's why our rallying cry is that wishes can't wait. As I said earlier in the presentation at the beginning, our goal is to grant the wish of every eligible child. And right now, we simply do not have the financial capacity to do that. Another way in which we measure performance is our wish satisfaction survey. So as Evanka said, at the end of every wish, we ask for our families to take a survey. Matt, and if you could see, for those, advance a slide, please. For those of you in the for-profit world, I think any company out there would absolutely kill for a 93% Net Promoter Score. And that is typically where we fall out. 90% of our families on average say that the wish experience exceeded their child's expectations, and 98% would recommend this program, the wish granting program, to other families. We pay very close attention to these wish satisfaction surveys. And this is just a roll-up of some of the questions we ask, but we're always looking to our families to give us feedback on how we can enhance our communication with them, our scheduling with them, their interactions with their wish granting volunteers. We're always seeking to improve that wish experience from start to finish, because as you saw through the wish journey slide, there's a lot more to a family's experience with us than just the wish, just that moment in time. We want to be with them and supporting them and letting them know that there's a community behind them from the moment they're referred to us to long after their wish is granted. And finally, we also are evaluated by a set of benchmarks that all Make-A-Wish chapters within the Make-A-Wish America Federation follow. This is the next slide, Matt. So we're constantly looking at basically our 4 strategic pillars and have measurable benchmarks in each one of those. So how are we doing on revenue growth? how are we doing on increasing the number of wishes we're granting? And are we granting them fast enough? Or are there children that are sitting there waiting for a very long time for their wish to get granted? How is the strength of our staff, the strength of our board leadership, the wish granting volunteers? Do we have enough volunteers and are they happy? And then also, are we doing our work efficiently? How much money are we spending on overhead as it compared to wish granting? Do we have liquidity, our rainy day fund? How much does it cost us to raise every dollar? So these are the national benchmarks that we look at every quarter, and we look at them across the entire enterprise. And it's really wonderful. It's such a very collaborative organization that we're always working with our peers at other chapters, for us in other major metropolitan areas, to learn from one another and to collaborate however we can. So I wanted to just go to the last slide, Matt, and I'm hoping this is not a, we're here to tell you how we do project management, but I'm hoping that at least one of you might think about, my gosh, this is such an amazing organization. I really want to get involved. There are so many ways you can do it. I'm not going to make a hard sell here and twist your arm, but I would ask that if you want to take out your camera, a little picture of this slide, or do a screenshot, there are so many ways in which we need help. As Evanka said, wish granting volunteers, especially wish granting volunteers who are comfortable doing wishes virtually, by Zoom, by FaceTime, and wish granting volunteers who are bilingual. We are always in need of bilingual volunteers. Our gala, which is our biggest annual fundraising event, is coming up next month. You can buy tickets and have dinner delivered to your door, but you can also just tune in that night for free and hear wish stories, have a wish reveal. Peter Alexander and Allison Starling are going to be our MCs, and it's just going to be an hour-long wonderful celebration of Wish Kids. For those of you who like to hike or looking to do some physical challenge, we have our 26-mile hike on March 20th, our Trailblaze Challenge. And as Evanka said, for us, in-kind donations are so valuable. They're as valuable as cash. And so especially those of you who traveled before, business travel, all travel is on hold. Your airline miles may be expiring, but if you donate them to us, they never expire. So we want to build a nice big war chest of airline miles and hotel points so that as soon as we can get kids traveling again, we have the resources to do it. So please think about donating your unused airline miles or hotel points before they expire. Car donations, a lot of people are not commuting anymore because of COVID. Send us your car. It's very easy. All you do is fill out a four-question questionnaire online, and the rest is delivered. The tow truck comes to your doors and you get a tax write-off. And I know many CFC and United Way campaigns are coming up now. You can also do payroll giving and donate to us for that through those mechanisms. So please, if you're interested in getting involved, Matt can share our email address, our website address with you, but we would be just so appreciative. And I hope you all know now that there's a real need right here in your community, that we're granting wishes to children right in probably your own backyard. When I joined the organization 3 years ago, I live in the city of Alexandria, and a part of Alexandria called Del Rey. I was shocked to find out that there were 5 children just in my little school, and the school next to my children's elementary school of kids in the WISH process. There are a lot of kids out there that need our help, and we can't do it without you. So I hope we met your goals, Matt, and showed you how we do project management. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Definitely. And let me lead a virtual round of applause for these 2 amazing professionals, and not only giving up their Wednesday night, but also the prep time for this and just their daily efforts and sacrifices and passion. So thank you. You mentioned CFC. I'm one of the CFC reps from my division with the federal government, and look, a couple of facts to share. $10, so over 26 pay periods, that's $260. That can pay for a young child to get a princess makeover. So even though the average price was in the thousands, like there's wishes that are in the hundreds. Like I wouldn't notice if $10 was missing from my direct deposit. For $20, which over 26 pay periods is $520, this great team can redo a room to look like a spaceship or Mars or the moon, and just setting up. So every dollar really counts here. So I know that at least for the Department of Defense, our campaign, combined federal campaign ends next Friday. So for a lot of the federal employees on this call and dependents of federal employees, they'll be getting reminder emails to potentially make a pledge. It's easy to find Make-A-Wish Mid-Atlantic on the charities.org CFC page. So just keep that in mind. Any questions as we wrap up the last couple minutes or comments? Okay, well, we'll have the recording shared in the newsletter tomorrow, as well as some links that were shared with us today on how to reach the organization. And thank you again, ladies, for your time, the information, and your passion.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity. Happy New Year.